Hello and welcome to episode 14 of Celtic Rumours TV, the Bawz and Bovril podcast with your host Mark and myself Paul. On today's show, we will take a look at today's 4-1 defeat to Rangers, how limited knowledge of John Kennedy actually really is, should the fans now protest out and demand answers, is it now time to announce the new Celtic manager? And of course, as always, we'll have a few guests on the show tonight. We'll have Michael, we'll have Brian, we'll have Barry. First, before we move on to Mark, I just want to read out something from the late and great Jock Stein, who I believe this is a plaque outside in the Celtic tunnel. The Celtic jerseys are not for second best, and it won't shrink to defeat any inferior Celtic player, any fair player. Though these players are passing that plaque every single day in Celtic Park, and I think they need to look at that. And if they don't see what this club means to Jock Stein and the fans, they need to take a long, hard look at themselves, Mark, after this season and today's performance.
Well, they certainly need to do that.
A few shout outs, Mark, for yourself.
Just really, thanks again, Paul, for everything you've done today. You're brilliant again doing that watch along. Thanks everybody that's tuning in. See Mikey's here waiting. I'm just going to go and get him on. Iceman's in, David Gallagher, and Bobby Sutherland. Bobby was in this afternoon as well. If you've not subscribed, please do that and hit the like button. The usual shout outs to Tim Alloy and Malika. A wee special mention to ROH. He had an operation the other day, which seems to have went well, but he's still got a long way to go with the problems that he's got, and finally, just young Ben is still recovering at home, so get well soon. Okay, Ben, hail.
I think before we're waiting for Mark to bring in Michael, I just want to say like this. Since John Kennedy has taken over as interim manager, he has 8 games, 3 wins, which one of them has been against a first division team, 2 defeats. The 2 games were against Rangers and 3 draws. Now, when you look at the Rodgers Celtic team, the way they reacted to a sending off to Rangers and the way a John Kennedy team has reacted to a sending off, I know it's hard, Mark, to compare the two, but the point I'm giving here is the lack of tactical knowledge that John Kennedy has to change the game around and react to a sending off.
And I think we spoke about that earlier, didn't we? A good manager should be able to change tactics as the game goes on and as the game's playing out, to see what's happening on the pitch and be able to adjust things accordingly.
I think more so other side, we found out that he actually isn't up for the Celtic job. By no means should be not even considered as this director of football role that he's being taunted that's going around at the moment.
But that's an old story, really, isn't it? That's all came from that time when Rodgers spoke up from getting director of football job. Kennedy himself came out the other day and said it was a load of nonsense. I don't think it was any. I think if it was going to happen, it would have been a realistic time was when Rodgers was here. But after that, I don't see how Kennedy could take on a role as director of football or that. You there, Mikey?
Our first guest tonight is Michael. Michael's been on a few times before. I know you got to know Mike, but we asked him again because of his views and how upset he was in the last Celtic Rangers game. Michael, welcome back to the show. Yeah, Michael, where do we start?
I'm still absolutely raging. Probably the best.
Quiet, Michael.
Yeah, quiet, am I?
Speak again.
You hear us?
Aye, that's better now, aye.
I'm just getting the computer set up. I spilled a can of iron and brew earlier, as you can imagine, and it was probably hitting my desk or something, so...
Where do we start, Michael? Where do we start? We were expecting something different from John Kennedy, maybe even in the lineup, but it was more or less the same lineup, wasn't it?
Were we expecting something different, though? As Celtic fans, we were wanting something different, but I certainly wasn't expecting it.
What this whole talk about Scott Brown not playing. I think we kind of the fans justified why he shouldn't be playing in these big games anymore, considering the way he played today.
It was a shocking performance, was it? But again, I mean, it's not a shock, is it?
It's not really in this,
Like, that was what I expected today. Like, I wasn't confident at all, and I mean, I didn't expect it to be as bad as what it was.
Do you think your sending off made any difference to it?
I don't think so. I still think it would have been. Maybe it wouldn't have been 4, but I still think it would have been 2-3-1.
See, before it we were talking, Paul, it's just hope, wasn't it? It was just the hope of it that, we hope to put in the performance. We hope that they do that. Well, they didn't. They let us down again. So we shouldn't really be surprised. We shouldn't be surprised at it.
No, like you say, starting like say Brown, for example, and again, Brown gets slaughtered. But how, like the other guys in the chat will probably agree as well. How bad was that guy at right back, that Kenny?
3 games now he's played against
so bad.
Rangers, Michael. 3 games, and he actually has been bad in the 3 games against them.
Yeah. And people will say, "Oh well, who else are we going to play?" I mean, if he's the best you've got, including the youths in that, then we're in serious trouble here.
Mark, John Kenny, yourself?
Oh, it's another shock of the day. See, at first I thought we'd maybe got picked up a wee gem here because he looked the part, but seems to be against the smaller teams in that he looks the part. He's not showed anything against Rangers in any of the 3 games. I'd be looking for a vast improvement in him for a right back next season.
You'll probably have you ever seen him pass the ball forward, Mark or Paul?
No.
But
like
we were talking about that earlier. Was that maybe because Forrest's not been in the team?
And it wasn't even happening today, Mark. Either was it?
No, it didn't happen at all for Kenny today.
I'm just glad that I'm not at your end of the town, Mark, or in the middle of town in Glasgow. I'm between Dundee and Perth. I'm away out in the middle of the country. I can just go and get the peace and quiet. I feel sorry for the fans that I've got to put up for this for the next 2-3 months. I just get absolute hell, which is what they're going to go and get like.
Well, hopefully there's some good news to put us on a better.
Going back to fans, Michael, do you think these players are thinking about the fans at this stage? Like, do they actually care about the fans that they're losing and how this season went?
I think the odd player is, but the majority of them couldn't care less, and it's shown in their performance. Look at it today; they didn't care. They weren't interested. They didn't want to be there. They're already thinking elsewhere, which that's what makes it worse. Normally, if you're wanting to move to a club or you're wanting away, you normally start turning out the performances. It's like when guys are like wanting a new contract. That's when you normally see them playing their best.
Yes.
But like this season, all of them? I mean, is anybody like other than maybe Ayer today? Was there anybody that was any good?
He'd be booked. I was saying to Mark there today during the watch long that Ayer looked like the only one, Mark, who was actually hurting in all that team today.
It really shows a lot of passion. I said earlier, I think it's just he's a natural born winner. That's just the way he approaches things in games and that. But you'd like to think guys like James Forrest and that would have. Do you know what I mean? How did guys like that feel?
Was he fit, Mark? Was he fit?
Forrest, well, he looked fit enough. As I said, I didn't think he would last the full game, and he didn't. But he was obviously fit enough to play the time that he did.
Like, going back to the sending off, like when we had Jonas online, we asked him about this referee, and he said he was card happy. I know that John Kennedy came out and he said he asked the referee about the sending off, that it was harsh, that the first tackle was harsh, but the referee supposedly came out and said to John Kennedy that Callum was a reckless tackle and he was out of control of his body. So if he was out of control of his body, that's a red card straight away.
I mean, I don't know how anybody can actually argue the sending off. Whether they want to question the first yellow, that's fine. But what was he actually doing, throwing himself into that tackle in the first place?
And he's supposed to be our next captain if he's still in the club. Like, but that was stupid judgment out of Calmac. They're just getting booked so early and going into a tackle like that, leaving him exposed to the referee. The referee had no decision to give him.
I think it was 100. I think it was 100 seconds later or something. I
Mhm.
think it was after the first yellow, and then boof, red card. Game finished.
You know, would it have made a difference, do you think, Mark, with the
Uh,
11 men in the pitch? Or
It's hard to say, but no, I don't think we would have. Just again, the team, just too many players didn't show up. I don't think let's face it, McGregor's hardly showed up all season, so we can't blame him. Apart from the numbers, the actual numbers, the 11 v 11, you can't say that we lost one of our better players the day when he gets sent off.
and the point of having Lee Griffiths on the bench and you're 3-1 down, you're looking for a goal, and you bring on Mickey Johnson and Griffiths sitting there on the bench. That's just showing that Griffiths' career's finished at Celtic, Michael, isn't it?
I think what I couldn't believe, like you say, is you're looking for goals 10 men or not. And remember when Simunovic elbowed Morelos right in the kisser the last time, mind and Celtic still won 3-2 with 10 men. Edward came on and scored the winner.
Yes.
Just because you've got 10 men doesn't mean that you're out the game. But when you're making changes like Edward going off and Mikey Johnson coming on,
have no recognised striker on the pitch. Like, when, to be honest, like, I'm not a fan of Griffiths over this season, but if he's only your recognised striker on the benchmark, surely you're going to bring him on to look for a goal, aren't you?
I would have brought Griffiths on. But I mean, the chances like Turnbull missed, the chances Moy missed. I mean, Griffiths, you'd have fancied Griffiths to score the one that earlier.
But then, yeah, again, it was going down to, we can't really blame Mark bad misses either, because the whole team in general was like, anytime Rangers kind of got in our box, really, they looked like score. Like Bain's handling today was atrocious.
I mean, I can't really say. I've been trying my best the last few podcasts, and I know there's a lot of guys on the chat that didn't rate Barkas and that, but again, you've got to take, I've said it loads of times, you've got to take into account the situation regarding the COVID and coming into a new country and like not being able to leave your house and this, that, and the next thing. There's no way that Bain is a better goalkeeper than Barkas.
Exactly. Or even Hazard at this stage, isn't this, Mark?
What was that, Paul?
Or even Hazard at this moment, you know?
I agree with Mikey that Barkas must be a better keeper than Bain. He's got to be. I don't know why even he didn't go. I'd give young Hazard the game the day we spoke about it. Maybe just I've went with something like that.
Well, I live here in Dundee, well, between Dundee and Perth. And again, Bain was at Dundee for years. He got released for Aberdeen as youth, then went to East Fife for Paul Hartley. And he's never a Celtic goalkeeper. I mean, he's barely a backup at best.
Exactly. And like that second goal, getting beaten at your near post, before he kind of reacted, the ball was actually nearing the net.
What's Brown doing though there?
What was Brown doing there? But that's what that I came on the watch along and said it'd be a typical Roy Keane thing, like saying he should never have that shot on the first place. That Brown should have thing. You know, but no, remember the last podcast, Mike, we were talking to yourself that Brown spends more time kind of trying to wind up Morales and stuff like that.
Well, you say Morales got this whole season.
Skimmed him.
Celtic won obviously the quadruple treble and did well in that. But at the end of the day, Morales has got the last laugh over him, has he? You know what I mean? So you can be in his ear and do whatever he wants. At the end of the day, he's just been laughed off. Every Old Firm match this season, he's just been laughed off the park. So,
you know, but Mark, like, what's Kennedy seen in Brown? You know, like we can see clearly, the fans, that his legs are past him.
His favourite
in these big games.
There's no football reason for Brown still to be playing in this team. It's either cronyism, favouritism, whatever you want to call it, or whether it's just, it's Scott Brown, you can't drop Scott Brown. I don't know what. We said earlier on, but we had Soro there, we played that many games. We should have easily had Soro playing a lot more games this season. Mix and match what we've got with the midfield and see what works and what doesn't. But every game with Brown's just when he's available, it just baffles me.
Going by Zoro, Mark, he was at fault for the fourth goal. Do I want to give him the ball away so cheaply?
Who was that?
Zoro. giving the ball away.
Aye, he did, aye.
Like I say, what, bringing Sorrow on, a holding midfielder, taking Brown off after 50 minutes, whatever it was, and giving the guy half an hour when you're 3-1 down with 10 men. Like I said, when we were counting it, me and Jonas, when we were watching it, I think in the time that Sorrow was on, or he made that mistake, I think he stopped Ryan, like 5 times Ryan Kent tried to run with the ball, and 5 times he was stopped by Sorrow.
But that substitution should be made in the first half when Calamark got sent off. You know, like it was like we were missing 2 men in the centre midfield when Calamark got sent off because Brown didn't have the legs, and the Rangers midfield were just walking straight through onto the defence.
What I was hoping for was for Sorrow and that to start, and hopefully maybe get a result, and near the end of the game, once the game is put to bed, then maybe Brown come on and maybe get a cameo in the last few minutes or that against him, and then get his say.
That's all that was needed, Mark. Wanted a cameo appearance in the last game against
Brown would be the ideal player to bring on if you're sitting 2 or 3 goals up and just want to finish the game out for the last 15-10 minutes. Then you bring Scott Brown on. And he holds the play up. The wee passes that he does to the side and back doesn't matter because the game's already won. He's just on to keep things tight and make sure nothing goes wrong.
But Mark, how come the players haven't kind of stepped up again in this match against our rival? And we spoke about like you don't need any motivation to step up against your local rivals. That should be in you. But it's obviously clear to me that a lot of these players don't want to beat the club.
I think that's glaringly obvious now, Paul, after the season we've had, some of the performances we've had to watch, especially in the derby games. It's just, there's no excuse for the performances that we've put into them. There's no excuses whatsoever that any player or that can make, because it falls down to what they've done on that park, and that's what they've let themselves down and let the fans down.
Michael?
I mean, I'm just like the performance in that game today. And like, I don't know what you are saying to it, like, but could anybody remember the last time they've seen a performance like that in a derby match?
No.
As bad as that? Is that like there's no passion at all from only one player and I was looking through the starting 11 that was uploaded by Mark earlier, and it's like Bain again not going to be playing next season, Taylor backup, Brown not going to be there, Turnbull will be there, Kenny not there, Edward not there, El Unity probably not there, Iron not there, McGregor not there, Forrest maybe, and Welsh is never a first team player just now.
Yes.
I mean, what kind of rebuild is that?
You know, very inexperienced. He's a lot to learn. Reid to become a first choice centre back, Michael, doesn't he, for Celtic?
I'm not 100% convinced on him yet, if I'm being honest. Like, he's got a long way to go to convince me if he's good enough. He's been through in just now because there's nobody else. It's very unfair on the guy, like, but I mean, he gives 100%. Like, that's one thing I'll say about the guy. He gives everything, like, but I'm not that sure of him, if I'm being honest. Seems a bit short in the rear for a centre half as well.
Exactly, Mark. You had a few interested thoughts on Welsh as well.
I like Welsh. I've got to disagree with Mike. I think he makes a right good player for us, but he has an experienced, and he showed that today, especially with the Defoe goal. But I think he's good enough for the squad. I think I'd put Welsh in the same category as like Taylor. They're maybe no good for the right away first choices in the big games, European games and that, but they'll more than hold their own for me playing at SPFL level.
Yeah, actually, I agree. Like, I agree that he's good enough to be a squad player. I just didn't think at this stage he's good enough to be near the starting 11.
No,
but like you say,
I agree with you there.
That's what I meant. Like, I agree that he should be in the squad. Like, I actually think that there is a player maybe in him. I just didn't think, like, he's been through in just now because obviously we've got nothing else. But like, I think what's worrying me, I said it earlier on the chat when the game was on. I mean, the rebuild. There's a rebuild, and then there's this. When you look at this squad, how could there be that many players coming in to even put up a challenge next year? That's one hell of a pre-season year.
One hell of a lot of money that's going to be needed.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
Do you think we're going to get an announcement next week, Michael?
We're
always every week, Mark, aren't we?
Sorry, Paul.
You know? We're kind of always saying that after every podcast. Are we going to get an announcement next week? Are we going to get an announcement this week?
Well, as time goes on, we're going to be right one week about it anyway. But as I said earlier on as well, season ticket renewals must be due to come out, and that to me that'll be the catalyst to think when things will start getting announced and that. Because if they just sent out the season ticket renewals tomorrow, there's no way that they'd sell them all as quick as they expect, and everybody expects Celtic season tickets to sell.
Craig Wong says in the live chat that he's getting pressure. Oyo's getting pressure off his international manager to move to a better league and to move to thing is Oyer. You know,
I mean,
that's
Solbakken needs to calm down. I remember when he was manager. I remember when that Solbakken was manager of Copenhagen, and we were rumoured to be signing their captain at the time, Thomas Delaney. That plays for Borussia Dortmund now. And I remember him saying back then that there's no way Delaney is going to Celtic because he's not at the level. I mean, he's the manager of Norway, not the manager of Brazil or Italy. He'll only be telling anybody that his player needs to move on or that.
I should just shut his mouth in it. It's like Steve Clark coming out and saying Celtic players should be playing at a higher level and things like that. There'd be an uproar about it.
Yeah, Mark, I have here from Bobby on the live chat. The big thing everyone keeps saying is it will be a massive rebuild. But what if it's not? And some of these bad eggs are still there next season. That's a bit of an issue, isn't it? That that maybe a lot of these players will be here next season after this performance. Michael.
I don't agree. There's certain players, like it says, that have made it quite clear that they don't want to be there, and they're the bad eggs.
Plus,
so you can always move. You can always move somebody on.
Situations as well. They've only got a year left in their deal. Anyway, the club's going to keep them for a year.
And like it says, there's always some other club that's wanting to take somebody. I mean, even look back in the day. Remember when we signed that Colin Kazim Richard? He'd been passed a bit more times than an Indian peace pipe, know what I mean? And he still ended up at Celtic.
That was a little favour for his agent again. He was in bother for attacking it was either a photographer or a reporter, and his agent phoned up. Who was it we were meant to be signing? We were meant to be signing somebody else, and his agent phoned up. Is that Dudu Dahan? Phoned up Peter Lawwell and says we need to get him out of here. I'm sure it was over in Holland somewhere. We need to get him out of
here. Feyenoord.
And the next thing he rolls up at Celtic Park. That was how that deal happened. That was a complete favour to that Dudu Dahan.
And there was a fella came out there, just read it there a while ago. He just came out there before the Rangers match. He was an SBL chief, but he's a Celtic fan. I think I have the name right. Is it Richie Mitchell? I think his name is. Rod. And he's actually blaming Lord for this thing because he's saying, yes, he said he
used to be in charge of the SPL or something like that, didn't he?
Yeah, but he's supposedly a Celtic fan, and he came out and he said he actually blamed Peter Lord for this. He said 1 for appointing Lennon, 2 for not spending that extra bit to keep Rangers at bay, and he quoted the Green Brigade, "Don't take your hands off the wheel," and that's basically what Peter Lord did, was take his hands off the wheel by not investing that little bit more in the team to keep Rangers at bay.
But they didn't think that the team, Paul.
Yeah.
There wasn't one of us that wasn't delighted when the transfer window slammed shut and we'd signed a £5 million Greek international goalkeeper, a £5 million striker. You know, we kept Edward, we'd kept players that we'd kept Ayer. So I can't lay that at Lowell's door for this season.
I think
money.
It kind of backfired on him though, didn't it? Like putting his faith into these players that kind of wanted to leave, didn't it? That kind of backfired on us this way, Michael, didn't it?
Yeah, well, that's what I like. Again, what Mark said. There's been plenty of money spent, and that's what I mean. It wouldn't have mattered if there was another, I would say, 10, 15 million spent. We still would have had the players that are there today performing in their positions. You know what I mean? There's bad eggs throughout the team, so spending an extra 5, 10, 15 million wouldn't have made any difference this season.
Spent the money. We kept.
And these have made a difference, Mark, isn't it? That they haven't come in and proven themselves to break into the first team either. These new players that we signed. So that's why we're actually still playing these regulars who actually left us down this season and who want to leave. That's the situation we ended up in, that we had to play these.
It's the same old story with Celtic. I've said it for years, whether it's transfer fees or wages. It's not the amount we spend, it's what we spend it on and how wisely we spend the money that we've got.
Hmm.
Celtic can't afford to sign a £5 million striker that's hardly going to kick a ball all season, no even be fit for the season. Celtic just can't do that.
He was such a strange signing, that Albina, yeah. Like how he's ended up at Celtic. He says it's not like he was a player in form that no worked out. He never played for West Ham for a year, and he's not played for Celtic for a year either. How unfit he is.
Like, sure, because like I know, like he when he played with Basel, he scored goals and stuff like that, but he came into a top league in the Premier League and he failed Middlesbrough in there. His fitness was a joke. Like, sure, because Celtic should be looking at that as well, back, shouldn't they? Like, are we making the right decision here, or
Well, we
you know?
said that earlier when we were talking about him, we were bringing him in on loan, and then the next time we're spending £5 million on him.
Mhm.
I thought that was one of, and it was strange for Peter Lowell to do that. It really was, because
To,
we know how.
to Lennon, I believe that Lennon met him and convinced him to actually sign for 5 million. Then that time, like he was actually considering his options before he was moved to Celtic, waiting to see if there was another move coming.
Yeah, but the
You
fact
know,
that he says the word that you used there, convince. You shouldn't need convince to sign for a club like Celtic. And if you need
Mhm.
that, then that's it. That should be the deal pulled right away. Kind of if somebody sat down at a table with me, if I was negotiating and says, convince me to sign, that's the deal done there, Like it's done, like that's it done. You either want to play for the club or you don't.
You're no Ronaldo. Into if they come out with Parter like that, you convince me
Uh,
to sign, mate. We're no begging you to sign. We're Celtic.
when it came out, did they with this signing? Did they that did Lennon actually beg him to sign? You know, because what I'm led to believe is that it was actually Lennon that met him directly and convinced him to sign. You know that it was Lennon who was a great admirer of him, and that's why they pushed this deal through.
I just don't know how you could be a great admirer of them. How can you be a great admirer of somebody that played good for 10 months one year, like 3 years ago?
Exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
like I say, the biggest blooper of the season was no signing that Ivan Toney. Everybody knew that guy was going to score goals. He's going to be like Gary Hooper, but perhaps maybe a wee bit better. And look at the goal. Oh, what was that? Over 30 goals now he scored for Brentford. He's going to be worth an absolute fortune.
Fortune.
You know what I
Ivan
mean?
Tony, isn't it? That young Ivan Tony, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. And he came out and said, did he, that he would sign for Celtic? No bother.
Barry Fry came out and said as well. He said he'd have walked up to Glasgow to sign for Celtic. Celtic just cooled down on the deal.
But like we spent that on Camilla and I guess do you know what I mean? We spent that fee on two players. One we got one back, 3.5 million, which we're led to believe is what we got back, but we don't know if we actually got that amount Mac back really. But like that's what we spent on two players who have failed, but he was a proven goal scorer. And maybe that could have pushed Edward up a level this season, that having a striker you knew
No,
that was
I think Tony.
real.
I think he was a backup if Edward left. I think that was what Peter Lowell was. I think that was what he was playing at. If Edward
But
had forced himself out the door, he'd have went for Tony. And after that, I mean, even we paid 5 million for a Yeti apparently. Another
30
million and a
scored
half. Another million and
30.
a half would have got you Tony.
And think of the
Yeah,
money you would have made back, Mark.
I know. As you said, we'd have made a fort. Maybe no this season.
If he did it again next
Uh,
season, then definitely.
It's definitely a player.
yep.
Well, fans going, oh, we don't want any more projects in that, but it depends what level your project's at. I mean, Dembele was a project when we signed him.
He was a lot of, like he says, that guy scored a lot of goals at Peterborough. Then, like Moussa Dembele, when we signed him for Fulham, he didn't score that many goals for Fulham.
No, he hadn't been that prolific with them at all.
No, whilst that Tony did.
He was Dembele was signed as a project, Edward was signed as a project, Ayer was signed as a project. So projects do work out, but
Yeah,
you can't fill a team with them. Or you
like
end,
that's what I like to be. That's why I like to be
Are,
Ivan
are,
Tony.
these, are these projects, Mark, going down to better managers able to help these players become better players? And is that because, like, maybe a Yesi, Camilla haven't become the players we thought there was because we actually didn't have a good background team to help them become better players?
no, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't put for what a Yeti's put in for this season and gone on his past record. I wouldn't put any of the blame for how he's performed at Celtic down to coaching and management of that. I think he just no really bother as long as he's getting a wage at the end of the week as a football player. that day, whether he's playing. He doesn't even seem to want to play. See, even when he does come on, he doesn't even seem to go. His body language is. I think he's just a bit of a waster, to be honest, Paul.
Yeah. Like moving on from the attacking side of it, we know this, but like, how can we, like, how can any manager come out and explain the defending today, not just today, but all season? Like, you know, it's atrocious. The defending today, and I thought Welch when he came in and think that he steadied the ship a bit, like, but by God, what they found out today, lads, like they were just walking straight past the defence today with freely. They were walking past the defence today freely. You know, like we were afraid to go in for a tackle, or you know, I really can't explain it. The defending, Mark, today.
I thought Taylor and Ayer did their best. Like Welsh was out his depth today, and John Joe Kenny was worse than a man short. Like he should just be the same as Duffy. Like Duffy, if Duffy is he's rumoured to have just parked up and that's him down back at Brighton, then that John Joe Kenny, he should be doing the same. Like he's done the same as Laxalt. Players like that, they've done it. Just call it a day there. Just go back to the clubs because these last few.
Due to the fact that they don't have proper cover in front of them either. You know, Terence is saying thing like that. They're getting no cover from the likes of Brown being in this midfield, Mark. Do you know what I mean? Like, is there no cover there for the defence when Brown is actually there in front of them?
Well, no, not really. There's nobody sitting there protecting the defence the way Brown done in his younger days. They just, as you say, they just seem to glide past them every time they get the ball.
I'm going to bang the drum again for another player, like you say, that hopefully we get in the summer. But could you imagine Ferguson in that team today? Can you imagine him in that midfield today, letting that happen? Letting that Davis and that Swan about with his cigar?
Yes.
They're the kind of players that you want, that players, hungry young players that want to come in and do a bit.
You know, Davis is surely older than Scott Brown, Mark, is he?
Well, I think a couple of years.
I think Davis is about 38 or 39, as you know.
I know he was definitely 37 a few months ago, and I waited till I'm 38. So
for him to control the midfield like that, like, and do you know what I mean? It's unthinkable, like for Celtic team, like in Rangers, like not controlling the midfield area. Do you know, we've said it before, Mark, before the watch long, Mark, and before the.
Davis doesn't run about like a headless chicken, which really was Brown's game. If they had the ball, he was nipping at their heels, chasing them down, picking up their wee mistakes when they made them. Davis is using his brain and just sits there and passes the ball about. Brown's no got that really in his locker. You know what I mean? It's always wee passes to the side, pass backs, whereas Davis can pick a pass going forward and still drive the team going forward. Brown's never been doing that for years.
No, like he says, and okay, sorry, maybe you can hear look at the fourth goal of the day, and then Welsh for maybe not just getting beat for the full. But you seen the difference when Sorrow came on? The way he was nipping about the park and that. Nobody was getting a minute.
There was a bit of a drive, wasn't there? There was a bit of a moving the ball forward. At least Michael wanted when Zorro was playing. He wasn't passing the ball back side to side. I think he was trying to move the ball forward.
I really rate him, and everybody in the chat will be saying the same. And it's only Kennedy that would have played Brown over Sorrow today. That's it, and that tells you everything about Kennedy.
You know, like Mark, there must be some player in Zorro, like if rumors are true that Tottenham have been looking at him and they see him as a squad player for them. Like there must be some player in there. Like
I think we've seen ourselves as a player in there, but it's just a matter of how could he handle playing 38 games a season plus cups plus Europe? Do you know what I mean? If he's going to be Brown's replacement, but hopefully a new manager isn't going to run players into the ground. Players don't need to be playing every week. But I think Sorrow looks a great player, as Mikey says. I really like him as well. There was a pass today. He was just maybe 30 yards like for our goal, and he hit a big long diagonal pass. But I think it was Taylor, and he kind of stopped thinking it wasn't going to reach him. But if he'd kept moving, it was going to reach him. You don't see Scott Brown doing things like that.
A good centre midfield between two of them, Zorro and Fox, and you know that they'd be a good pairing together, wouldn't they? To break up the play in the midfield and to get the ball forward, you know, because we saw a different side of Ferguson when he played against us is he's able to move forward as well. Michael, can't he, Ferguson?
Sorrow, Ferguson, Turnbull, and McGregor. Like they four. I mean, then that means you would take Forrest as well, all thrown into that. I mean, that's fine. And if McGregor was to move on, Sorrow, Ferguson, and Turnbull. You're not going to get much better than that, eh? Like when they're all playing well. If they let that Ferguson slip through their hands down to England or wherever, then this is going down the John McGinn route again. Just a big mistake. Like they're on about signing James McCarthy. They should have signed James McCarthy 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like says, and I mean, don't get us wrong. Would he be a good squad player for Celtic? Maybe, because if you look at the clear out, that's the way to happen. But would I play James McCarthy over Ferguson, Sorrow, or Turnbull? No chance.
No chance. Yeah, exactly. He'd be more of, as a backup kind of and kind of a more experienced player to have in the dressing room.
A big wage backup, though.
You know, what? Where does Kennedy go from here? Has this tarnished his reputation as a manager? Shown, because what I've seen, like his lack of tactical to make changes and stuff like that, Mark. Has this interim thing?
But we're talking
kind of tarnished?
I don't want to say it's tarnished his reputation or that, because he's not really got a reputation as such for being his own man. And I mean, he's not going to get offered a job in the English League or anything like that. We're talking about a Kilmarnock, that kind of level of job. And somebody will give him a job as a manager just for the simple fact of who he is and on his reputation as a coach. But it's time for me at Celtic's probably done now. It's time. I've said that for every podcast I've done. It's time for Kennedy to go out and prove himself that he can be the main man.
I think he's kind of been there kind of too long, Mark, in behind the scenes, like go and prove yourself, as you said, like and see how he gets on, you know. But as to the rebuild and this director of football thing that popped up, we know there's nothing to it, but he shouldn't be considered for neither two, Michael, shouldn't he?
Kennedy should have been, like I said in the chat, and I can come across quite harsh on things, but Kennedy should have been away years ago, even before Rodgers even came. Like it says, he had that horrific injury and Celtic threw him a lifetime in a favour by giving them the coach and working his way up and getting his badges and that. They've stuck by him. They did no bad by Kennedy. It's time to move on from him. He'll never be part of this new setup. I just don't see how he'd fit in, especially after the 8 games he's been in charge. I think he's shown now that he's not up to any job. Like it says, he needs to go down lower league, like what Paul Hartley and that done.
I would agree with you. You know, I would agree to that. I think Ken needs to go down to the lower leagues and kind of prove himself there, Mark, and kind of maybe kind of bring a team up the levels and stuff like that, see how he goes there, because the Celtic job at the moment in any capacity, any senior role, I think is too big for Kennedy at this stage. You know. Michael,
just before we move on, got on about like Kennedy and this like rumours and that you both had of this director of football role. Absolute nonsense. Like, I mean, that's one of the that's maybe as important as the manager, or maybe more important. So how would you be giving it to Kennedy?
Exactly.
I don't think he's got the skill set that's required for that. I think he needs to be a bit, no arrogant, but I think you maybe need to be a wee bit ruthless to be a director of football. Because you're in charge of everybody, you're in charge of the head scout, you're in charge of the physio, you're in charge of the full thing, know what I mean? If things aren't going right, you've got to lay down the law. And I just don't see Kennedy as that type of guy. Plus the actual skills for planning, scouting and just things like that. I don't think he's got the capacity to do things like that. He's never done anything like that.
I'll put it this way, no. Like I'm quite confident in saying that the whole time in that half time, there's not once that he probably raised his voice.
I said that at the watch along with Paul as well. We can't see him in there reading the riot act. It would have been the air him round the shoulder, he's doing well, we just need this wee bit of luck, just keep doing what he's doing kind of thing. That's what I imagine his team talks are like.
Exactly. exactly too quiet, kind of, as he said there. Like, can you see him laying into like the Scott Brown and stuff like that? I just can't see it. Like, you know what I mean? I can't see it. Like, as he said, like that. These are his favorite players, and he's been talking up Scott Brown the last couple of weeks, and so you couldn't see John Kennedy laying into Scott Brown at halftime and about his performance. You just couldn't see it. Like,
He's been there too long. He's basically like Mark and everybody says. It's just a mates act at this stage, is it? He's too friendly with them.
And I think that's why the problem is like that. Mark, he's been there too long. He's more kind of mates now with kind of people there that have been with the club over the years, kind of a thing. Like,
That is the kind of assistant manager's kind of job. He's a bridge between the players and the manager. Sir Kennedy would have been friendly with him to see like all the wee gossip. Oh, I've done something stupid outside the fit bin. That kind of, it would be Kennedy that would go to with that kind of thing. See, it is now that Kennedy's in charge. To me, it is just a pals act. Kennedy, I'm not wanting to upset Scott Brown by drafting him.
yeah,
Maybe it's down to that. Scott Brown's in the dressing room, or how am I no playing, starts moaning the next time. Or Scott Brown's wee cliques all up arms because Scott Brown's no playing. Maybe it's the players that's got the power in the dressing room now, and Kennedy just can't change it.
Scott Brown should have been moved on. Like, see, when he signed the deal at Aberdeen to become player coach or player assistant or whatever it is, why did he not just go with Stephen Glass then? Like, now? Like, why did he wait until the end of the season?
No, I agree with that. He couldn't have played for them right enough, but he could still have went and worked as assistant manager for them.
Yeah.
But I said earlier on, see, after the cup game, that should have been Brown's last game. Because this game, even the day, it was a meaningless game. All we were playing for was pride.
Yeah.
Meaningless when it comes to the league. I don't mean a meaningless game against Rangers. And that should have been all it was at stake. But we should have still been looking at the longer term plan and said, right, well, Brown's not going to be here. Teslan's not going to. So you're only playing. Edward, you're not playing. You've hardly kicked it off for months. You're leaving in the summer. We all know that. So we're just going to try something different for the next 5 games that were left after that cup game.
Yeah,
exactly. Mike, we're going to leave you there. And as always, thanks very much for coming on and sharing your views with us. Hopefully, we'll have you on again soon and we'll have a new manager in place. And we'll talk some things about bright things for a change about Celtic. But at the moment, it's just doom and gloom.
Yeah, no bother, like
Pure depression.
Let's need to try.
Much, Mikey.
No bother.
Next, we have, I don't know how to say sober, Brian, or, but it's a Welsh boy from the former who was on us before the match. And if you're on Discord, you can see he's after a few already. Is he there, Mark?
Just killing him now.
And just on the live chat, what's your thoughts on Kennedy, and does he lack the management skills to change a game, or has he been found out that he actually isn't the person Brendan Rodgers claimed he was to be, that he's supposed to be this brilliant coach behind the scenes?
Hello. Hello. Fuck that one. Here we go. How are you doing, boys?
All right, Brian.
Brian, how do you sum up that today, bud?
Shite. Absolutely shite. You want me to quote it or tell me how it is? Hello?
I can hear you. What?
Yeah, sorry boys. I've got 2 people around. It's a bit mental here at the minute.
But go by the starting lineup, like you kind of knew that this game was going beyond us,
The starting lineup was good.
But where did
nothing wrong with that lineup.
Down to their lack of
Oh, sorry, you have to excuse me, my signal's not very good. Hello?
And yeah, I can hear you better. That's good. Did it turn because of this ending off, Brian, do you think, or was it just the fact that we gradually faded out of the game, or?
What was he doing with that tackle? He's just been booked.
Mm-hmm. you know, 100 seconds after the tackle, you know, and he goes in for a tackle, and the referee just next to him, and he really didn't give the referee a chance to send him off. So he didn't, and we were complaining about Carter making tackles. Now we can see why he shouldn't be making tackles. You know,
If you look at it, 2-3 minutes before that, he's dancing around like he doesn't know what to do, and then he's jumped in for a tackle. He should know better than that.
exactly. Like, this is supposedly our next captain if he is here next season. This is supposedly our next captain, and he's making choices like that. Like, you know, like, what's your take on the substitutions, Michael? You know, like, bringing on. I know we said Mickey Johnson at the starting was a good thing to bring on, but not bring him on as a lone striker when you had Griffin on the sidelines.
I've just got to a point where it's fuck this season and move on.
You know,
it's terrible.
You know, I was saying to Michael there, like, do you think an announcement needs to be made next week? Get the new manager in, that we know that the rebuild is happening.
Well, the new manager's coming in no matter what happens, so next week's not even that important in that respect. To me, it's just, we said it the other week in the podcast, get in that change room, say who's here next season, who's no, and then build around that. Obviously, they're going to bring other people in and see what happens, but see those that don't want to be here, don't give them a jersey again. Simple.
Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on John Joe Kenny? Would you give him another chance next season, the way he played the last 3 Rangers games?
No. He's another one. Came in, time to go. No good enough.
And what about, we say, Gavin Strachan has been, like, he obviously was involved in the substitutions today, Mark, and thing, like, his position, and I said it last week, like, his position must be under consideration.
I wouldn't say fucking smoke. I think you fucking need it.
I've said
Well,
I don't know what Stratton actually does, that analytic stuff and all that, but he's meant to be good at it. So basically, all he's doing is giving information. Whether, I don't know if the man, did Lennon understand the information that Gavin Stratton was giving him?
I honestly don't. I honestly can't put into words between communication between the coaches and the first team, because none of them actually seem to know what they're doing or what their roles are. But that's between the coaching staff and the first team, right?
You said the other night there, Mark, about Gavin Stratton, about his statistics and stuff like that, and he's better to be good. He probably is, or he might not be. I really don't know. But he's sort of been made a bit of a fall guy because the fact that he's on the, like you said, was it you or Michael said, somebody said about him on the, perhaps he's better after the stands doing all this kind of stuff, so he's no, he's a focal point for things with that laptop, isn't he?
Aye, everybody's it's as if, what's he doing with that laptop? It must be his fault. He's telling him and showing him things on it. No.
He's ridiculed for it, and everybody, it's a laughing stock, even amongst our own fans, let alone anybody else. So, but who's to know? He might be really, really good at what he's saying, like you say. If the management are not taking on board what he's telling them or something, we're no party to that. But the fact that he's there with his laptop, everybody's just laughing at him. So why is he there to what you see?
We actually don't know what he's actually shown the managers, Mark. Really, like, you don't know, like, if you say, look, this is what you do, and the managers.
Well, we see the wee things that the players have got in their vests and that. He'll be getting all that data from that live as it's happening. Where players are running, where heat maps and all that, or that kind of thing. And it should be like I don't know what the word is. Like, it should be helping the manager to figure out tactics and stuff like that in game. Do you know what I mean?
He's probably said
heat maps.
He's probably said he's a lazy bastard. He's getting ignored.
Well, back like to when Lennon was the manager, and they said on the live chat there, like, how many times have you saw Lennon turn to Kennedy saying something, and Kennedy with his hands folded, kind of throwing up his shoulders and going, like, I don't know, you know, kind of a thing, like, it's like there seems to be a lack of communication between the coach and staff more so than the first team. You know, that they don't know.
I don't even say it's lack of communication. I think it's lack of everything else than communication. Look, you know, it's you can pick a team. We all said before the game today that's the team we'd pick. We all went out, and that team were awful. They were terrible. They were exactly the same as what they've been all season. Nothing. There's a point. I don't know. I was watching Sky Sports yesterday night, and they were talking about the strikers. For Brighton, they were talking about, and they were saying like Graham Potter, what a good manager he is and stuff like that, and his team are playing well, and the strikers not putting the ball in the back of the net. At some point, you've got to say to yourself, this is about what preparation you've got, what team you pick. It comes down in the players, and we've lacked that all season. All season, there's been times where we've said, "Oh, we'd rather he played or whatever it might be." But primarily, that team should be the best team in Scotland, and we've all been.
On paper, I've said it 100 times. Well, she have said it. On paper, Celtic are still the best team in Scotland, but they're just on paper doesn't win you anything. As we've seen this season, but I've said it all along as well. Well, we were all blaming Lennon, and I was never a big Lennon fan, but off the wheels fell off this season. I've said that the majority of that responsibility park.
Exactly. They shouldn't need any motivation to come out and play for Celtic. I mean, we're the biggest club. They should be lucky to play on this Celtic jersey. You know, and to play performance like that all season, it's just not good enough for these players, Brian, is it? It's just not good enough.
There's not one player that's covered himself in glory this season. Not one. Not one. You know, and it's a lot of good players who've just completely underperformed.
I think we lost Brian McAvey.
I think we did, aye.
So we move on.
No, he's still there.
They're waiting for the Huns to catch up, and it's up the arse, pure and simple. But the fact is, we've still got the best players, and they've just not done it.
Who would you blame for that, though, Brian?
I blame the players.
The Huns
I blame the players. You know, there comes a point when boys go on the pitch, and it's down to them, and they've just not done it.
You know, is that down to the fact that they actually don't want to beat the club, do you think?
That should be irrelevant. They're football players. It doesn't matter where they are or where they want to be. They're getting paid well. They're getting paid well. If you want to make a move, then earn a move. You know, the fact of the matter is, you know, I mean, I played a lot of football up until I was like 30-year-old, and it doesn't matter whether my team was good or no. When you stepped on a pitch, you played well. Or to your best, not necessarily well, but you played to your best.
You gave everything you
gave everything you could. Because just for that, I mean, we played football not for the sake of getting moves and stuff. It was just because we love playing football. These boys are trying to make big moves and big money and make their careers and whatever. You know, the promised land's England. So these boys should be good at everything. But for some reason or another, they've just not done it.
And I don't blame it. You see, people are talking about it. You can't really blame that on tactics and what the manager's saying, what the coaches are doing. It's just down to the players' attitude.
Exactly, Mark. They're professional players. You know what I mean?
I keep harping on about it. I've said it for months as well. But professional pride, your own personal pride. They could have become Celtic legends forever. Know what I mean? If they'd done that 10 in a row, and they didn't even get up with a whimper. They didn't have a whimper in them for it.
I think they're always going to be remembered as the failures now after this 10 in a row season. And they're going to be known as failures, or the lack of attitude, or lack of commitment to Celtic. You know, that's what these players are going to go down, aren't they?
A lot of them so it should be. A lot. Edward, see Dembele, I've still got a soft spot for Dembele, even after the way you left in that. But see once Edward goes, I'm no bother my backside what Edward does. Unless we've got a sell-on fee for him. Got a sell-on fee, we'll make money off.
They barely gave everything for Celtic. You got about 40, 55. One, you're correct. One. Sorry, I'm having an argument here with one of the boys. He's good at 55, it's one.
You've not got one of them in your house, have you?
No, I haven't, no. He's actually a mad Tim. He's all...
Gone, Mark?
No, he's still online.
You know, can you put roughly?
No, he's
and I'm saying roughly, Mark, like how much you think this rebuild is going to cost us realistically, and how much would Celtic have to spend, you think?
Oh, realistically, I think Celtic will need to break records for the amount of money they've spent this coming summer. To put a figure on it, I mean, it depends what market your Celtic will be short, man, because I mean we're not going to go out and buy like £9 million, £7 million players for every position. But
he needs to spend wisely, really, Mark, don't this?
Thing, and I keep saying it as well. For me, it's not to do with the transfer fees we pay; it's the wages. We need to up the wages that we're going to be paying players. That'll get you better players, even rather than the big transfer fees does.
Exactly. I think Welchie is no longer with us, so if we can get Barry on the line, maybe we can get Barry on the line and go through things with Barry. Barry, as you know, lads, is Iceman and on the forum and an ex-footballer, and it's good to have him on to get his thoughts on the game, and especially about the defending. Like, how can we explain that? You know, it's just beyond me because I can't explain it. You know, we'll also ask Barry about is there actually a lack of communication between the coaches and the first team that the players. Barry, welcome to the show.
Hi guys.
Hi Barry.
How we doing?
You know, we thought we would have had a good day today, but again, like so many times this season, Barry, this Celtic team just hasn't turned up. You know?
Yeah. One day I'll come on this podcast and I'll be full of beans and positivity about Celtic. Unfortunately, today is not that day. Yeah, I mean, same again, wasn't it? It was the same again. I could tell right from the start when they went out. You know, I kind of, me myself, whether it be blind faith, whatever it may be, I was a bit hopeful for today. I kind of thought to myself, you know, these are guys that are going and playing in their last Glasgow derby. You know, Ayer, Edward, Scott Brown. You know, I just thought they might give a bit something. You know, have that wee bit of desire, bit of passion, bit of something back to the fans. But it was just exactly the same again. There was just nothing there. I mean, I don't know. I think there's something's happened at this club. Something's happened that we don't know about, because I cannot give an explanation as to why we just are so far off it. That there was nothing in it today. There was no passion. There was, you know, we've seen Scott Brown for the last 15 years go in and dominate these games against them, you know, full of passion, full of desire, getting in their faces, flying into tackles. And today it was just 90 minutes of, I get same as what we've had every game this season, just walking about. You know, there was no. He came off the pitch after an hour. I don't know. He looked like a dejected figure.
Yeah. I think I don't sound have a radio on there. That Welchie back in the line.
Hello.
That looks like. Sorry lads, I think that was Brian trying to get back in the line. Mark, was this? Hello, Mark.
We're just getting back on the count of 4 years on.
I thought, was that Brian trying to get back in the line? Was this?
But yeah, like I was saying, guys, it was, yeah, I mean, just, it's tough to watch. It's really, I just can't put my finger on what's going wrong.
It's like, it's going back to what you're saying, right? Like, something must have happened in the club that we don't know about, that this turnaround of players has become so bad. Like, something must have happened that we actually don't know. But because you can't explain, you can understand to me games but not the way Celtic have been this season. You can't explain that.
Well,
You know?
you know something. I thought. Well, I think we all thought it was Neil Lennon, didn't we? We thought Neil Lennon was the issue, but Neil Lennon's been gone for 2.5 months now, and the players are just putting the same performances. So I don't know what that is. I mean, Neil Lennon touched on it months ago. He says there's something underlying that he can't reveal. I don't know if he ever will reveal it, but something's happened within the football club, and it's affected the whole lot of them. And I don't, like I say, today, whether it be a bit of blind faith on my part or whatever, I thought we'd get a reaction today. I thought that, we've spoke about it before, Brown, Ayer, Edward, Christie, potentially McGregor. This is all their last time they ever faced Rangers in a Celtic jersey. And I thought we might get a wee bit of it back today, a wee bit of the passion, a wee bit of the quality, but no, it just wasn't there again. And they just walked over the top of us. And I just don't understand why. It's so disappointing.
I was even saying be the next defender, Barry. Like you can't make excuses for that defending today. Kind of how easily Scott Brown got skimmed there for the last goal. You can't justify that defending today. Like you can't.
No. There's no justification for it, Paul. And you know what? I will disagree with Mikey. And I don't know who else has said that. I didn't think Ayer played well today at all. If we're talking about a guy who dribbles out of defence, yeah, great. He done that a couple of times, not a problem. But see his defending today, it was pathetic.
And Dovey's head again today. Actually, today when I noticed that the high balls again, he was actually being caught out by the high balls again today.
You know something, Paul? Like, see, not that you would do this. See, any time a cross comes into that box, see if you freeze it. See if you freeze your television. And it's not just Ayer. Welsh was guilty of it. None of them are looking to see if there's a Rangers player in the box or who am I going to mark. And I've said this before. They're not looking at that. They're looking at the ball every time. And they scored 2 goals from it today. Roof twice. They're not looking. And now, listen, I know he was a third-man runner for his second goal, but they're not interested in who's. They are just watching the ball. And for Morelos' goal, it was a poor attempt at a challenge from Brown. But Ayer, come on, he ducks out the way. You take that ball in the face, you stop them from scoring. Ayer ducks. That's for me.
Wouldn't you? You'd always see Ayer throwing his body on the line to stop a goal or to stop a shot. But we just, as you said there, and I noticed it there, you didn't see that from him today after Barry saying that, Mark. Did you? That he wasn't throwing his body in the line either, Mark?
He wasn't near enough to do it, really, was he? Can't he single Ayer out for any, really, I don't think. He didn't have the games, I'll agree with you on that, Barry, aye, but who did have a good game today?
You know what, Mark? I look at, I don't know if I overanalyse things at times, maybe I do, but I look at when crosses are coming out, and you know what? It's to do with the fact that he's no defensive awareness, Ayer. He doesn't know when there's boys in and around him. And he gets caught out.
Is he still thinking? And he's actually realistically he's not.
Well, I mean,
centre back, is he?
Yeah, I mean, and that's it. He's never been sort of grown up with that. He's never grown up with being a defender, and that's something that you learn and something that you're taught is where your opposition are. You as a defender need to know where the strikers are, where where the danger is. But I mean today there was a not just pointing the finger at Ayer. There was everybody. Man, yet again has let themselves down, let the football club down, let the fans down. One thing I didn't like about Ayer was him ducking for that goal. He ducked out of it for me for Morelos' goal. See, any sort of man worth his salt, any boys are talking about Ayer being the next Celtic captain if he was given the chance. You take that ball in the face, take it square in the dish, and you stop them from scoring. You didn't duck out of it, and then, like I say, the hologram in the goal lets it in the roof of the net. But I don't know. That's actually I can explain it, Mark. That you're standing there and it still managed to go through him.
Exactly, yeah. Like it was kind of the ball was behind him. I think before he even reacted, it kind of looked that way to me. But Barry, that he reacted after the ball went behind him. Like you could easily see that Skpe isn't up to be Celtic number one keeper, and he should never be considered as a Celtic number one keeper.
Would you be confident playing in front of him, Barry?
No, no, man. And that's the issue. Like I think we've spoken about it before. We've got 3 keepers, and unfortunately this season none of them have been up to the task. They've all made errors. They've all made mistakes, and like we say, as a result, there's a confidence issue there. But the defence that you guys have spoken already about, Kenny. I mean, we've lost our identity as a football team, in my opinion. We don't know what we're about. Celtic for the last 100 odd years, we've always been a team that's been based and built on attacking, attractive football. And see, just about everybody to a man today, everybody's first thought was to pass the ball back the way today. Everybody went back. Even McGregor was going back when he was still on the pitch. Brown was going back. Kenny was going back. A lot of it as well. I thought Kenny was poor. He's just not up to scratch for me. But it doesn't help when Edward is making no offer to receive a ball. Kenny's looking up and he's got nothing on in front of him. You've got James Forrest standing about 10 yards away. He was feeding him from time to time. But, when you look at them, I don't want to speak about them, but when you look at the way they work, Mark, you said it before, they're not a great side, but they're a well-drilled team. They know what each other's doing. They know what their jobs are. And you looked at like Roof and Morelos and Aribo and all these boys. They were all making, every time a Rangers player had the ball, they were all making options for them. And they had the boy on the ball, multiple options. And the wee link-up plays. We don't have any of that. We have absolutely none of that. None at all. Edward again for me. He got his goal. I take that out of his game. I don't care that he scored a goal a day. His actual play and normal open play was pathetic today. Mm-hmm. I never seen him sprint once. Not once in 90 minutes did he sprint to close a player down, to get on the ball. Nothing. Jogging 90 minutes. Jogged for 90 minutes. And it's just like I say, maybe it was a wee bit of blind faith on my part today, but I thought, this is a swan song for some of these guys. For probably 90% of that starting 11, this was a chance to go out on a wee, not a high probably, but I'll give a wee bit back to the club. They've been successful for, the last 4 years as a team. The team itself, I know we've won the 9 in a row, but the last quadruple treble has been mostly this team that's there. And there was a chance today to just go out and give a wee bit back and go out on a high. But no, they went out again, just like the season, with a whimper. And just not good enough. This season can't end quick enough for me.
And I think we actually saw it again today, Barry and Mark. Like, what a difference a keeper actually makes to a team. And I hate talking about him, but he did. Like, I saw it like when I don't know what player it was. It was Thornhill's header, and you could see McGregor screaming at his defence after the Thornhill's header. He was screaming at the defence that he was able to get the header. That's just breathing confidence into your defence, that your keeper is roaring, shouting at you. You don't see that from not just the keeper, but any of our players don't seem to be screaming at anyone within the first team.
It's, what, Paul? It's standards. That's the standard that they set. That's the standard they have. They do not accept that an opposition player is going to get their head to the ball before and that's what McGregor was screaming at his 2 centre halves for. Because he expects them to go and win that ball, and 9 times out of 10 they do. But you're right, we don't have that. We don't have that sort of leadership, that that standard set whereby players are determined that they're going to get the ball, and if they don't, then their teammates for it. And that's what McGregor was doing today, because Turnbull got to the ball before his 2 centre halves. He gave them hell for it, and that's the way it should be, because his centre half should be winning that. But you're right, we don't have that. We don't have that in our team, unfortunately. and it's like a broken record, isn't it? When we speak about oppositions getting their head to crosses, getting their head to corners, being the first ones there. It's something that for the last 60 games this season we've never learnt from, and it's unacceptable and unforgivable.
It's the same. Like, these just aren't new mistakes that this team is making. Do you know what I mean? It's this. You can look back at any game and any set piece that has been against us, that people have scored against us. It's the same mistakes they're making, Barry. And it's like they're not learning, or do they want to learn, or you can't explain it, like,
No, you can't explain. There's no explanation for it, Paul. Like I say, I don't know what the percentage is. The amount of goals that we've lost this season to set pieces, or the second phase of a set piece, it's through the roof. And like you say, it's happened since the start of the season, and we're now 2 games to go, and it's still happening. And you can't explain it. We spoke about earlier, you guys, about the rebuild and the massive overhaul in the summer. I'm happy that's happening, because see what we got on the pitch and today and for the last however many games. It's a bunch of imposters on that pitch with Celtic jerseys on it. As you can tell, I'm quite emotional about it. I thought I'd calm down after 4 or 5 hours of the game finishing today, but you've set me off again. But I'm glad it's going to be a massive rebuild, because it'll not be those players that are on the park. Hopefully, it'll be guys that come in and want to play for this jersey, want to learn, want to play for Celtic, and going forward next season, hopefully we see a complete different attitude and style on the pitch that's just not there this year.
Barry, and they're too comfortable now in the club, and they're being there too long. To me, as I spoke with Mark, like these players know they're not going to be dropped. How bad they're going to play, like Scott Brown, Edward, Christie, and stuff. They know they're not going to be dropped. Do you know what I mean? And they're too comfortable at the club, and it's no harm, as you said, like, for these players to leave. Have new players come in, a bit of fight for the club, a bit of passion. I think that's what needed, is to move on these players who have been here for too long. Mark, you have anything there?
Oh, I agree with everything Barry's saying, and you, Paul. Just the players have it's just they're comfortable. There's nobody nipping at their heels if I don't play well. I'm going to be dropped for the next game. Guys like Edward. Again, it's down to the Griffiths situation and what's happened with Yeti's no helped either. But there's just too many of them. Their comfort zone, and it's just what Barry says here about the lack of standards. That's been going on in the club for the last 18 months. The dropping standards for the time with Rodgers and that is unbelievable that it's came how bad it actually is.
Yeah, again, how would actually the lack of standards, like, fair enough that they dropped, but how fast they actually dropped back.
Well, that's the worrying factor in it.
How
when we're going about Peter Lowell, I think he made, see, like, the amount of players that are coming out of contract, I think that's a bit of I don't want to swear, a bit of a muck up, I'll call it, on Lowell's part. There's so many important players, their contracts are coming into the last year, and I think that's helped or hindered. It's helping with the rebuild, but it's hindered us for this season, I think.
Mm-hmm. And Barry, going by the Lee Griffiths, the questioning, John, and I asked the lads about it, questioning bringing on Mickey Johnson and having your 3-1 down, you need goals, and throw Mickey Johnson up as a lone striker. I can't see the thinking of what John Kennedy was doing there when he had Lee Griffiths. My thinking is that Lee Griffiths has already been told he's not getting a new contract after that.
Well, Paul, I would have started Lee Griffiths today. I would have started him up front. He would have started for me today. Simply because he's our biggest goal threat. As simple as that. We've got good players, Edward, etc. But Lee Griffiths is our biggest goal threat, in my opinion. So I would have started him today. So when I seen he wasn't starting, slightly disappointed, but you just have to go with it. Then, like you say, when he decides to bring Edward off and put Mikey Johnson up front, it didn't make any sense. Inexplainable. I couldn't make any sense of why he done that. But for me, that was the final nail in Griffiths' coffin. I think you might very well be right. Me personally, I'm slightly disappointed because I said on previous podcasts I would have given him another year. I just think when you've got a guy that scored 100 goals for the club, he is a constant goal threat. He bailed us out at Pittodrie. He won the penalty at Ibrox in the cup game. So he does still offer something to this team. And I would think he'd be worth another year. Listen, granted, I don't make any excuses for his attitude and behaviour and what he's done in the past. I really can't.
My
But for me, I would have kept him.
Is like that. If we say no, like the manager has already been installed, but just waiting for the announcement to come out. So more than likely he was watching that game today, right? On John Kennedy's part, he should have at least put some of the players on that first team, like Sir Griffiths, whose contract is up. Let the new manager make a decision on him if this is a type of player I want to keep around in the club this season. Surely, because does Griffiths March think on the right to show us that he deserves a new contract considering the amount of goals he I know he's left us down by this season, but sure that has to be up to the next manager to make that decision, do you know?
Well, it should have been started even after the performances we've seen for Edward, just to prove to Edward that there's repercussions if you're going to put in, if what you would even call a shift, if he's even putting a shift in the park. But the Lee Griffiths thing, why was him and Ajeti even on the bench then if he wasn't going to bring a striker on? I mean, was he just there to make up the numbers? Is it that bad that we're just putting players on the bench just to basically make up the numbers?
That's exactly it. Like what was the point in having one of your most senior strikers on the bench and not even using him? Was he there, as he said, just to make up the numbers? If that's the case, why not have shown a youngster on the bench and let the youngster get experience? You know, if you knew you weren't going to be bringing on Griffiths.
Even if Griffiths has been told he's not getting a contract extension, that to me that wouldn't have affected Lee Griffiths' performances on the pitch today. If he'd get time on that park, I don't think Lee Griffiths is that type of person that would spit the dummy out. Lee Griffiths would have been choking to go in there and score against him today because he loves it. We know that.
I agree with that 100%. He's not the type that would throw the toys out the pram. He loves playing football. He loves scoring goals. That's what he's born to do. That's what he's brought to the club to do, and that's what he's done for many, many years. So if he'd have got some game time today, he would have been right on it. What I found a bit strange that John Kennedy was in the press during the week there. I don't know if it was a pre-match press conference or it was a bit earlier in the week, but he was saying that Griffiths has an opportunity to get himself into the Scotland squad between now and the end of the season. He never played it today. So has something happened between John Kennedy having that interview and today's team selection? Because why you wouldn't put the guy on, I think Mikey said it earlier, you know, you're 3-1 down and chasing the game. You've still got a chance. You know, you nick a goal, 20 minutes to go, 3-2. You never know what's going to happen. But if you put on, you know, Mikey Johnson up front.
You know, you'd have him rattled, like if you scored a goal late, and at least you have something really to push on to. Do you know, like, but my thing was how slow Kennedy was to react to the sending off. Do you know, like realistically, like I said it, like, we were down 2 men in the centre midfield when Calamaco sent off because Brown isn't the player we have anymore, and we all know that. Like, so realistically, we're down 2 players in that midfield, and to being odds over 3-1 down, it just didn't make sense. Do you know?
Yeah. It could come down to Kennedy's lack of managerial experience because, you know, in terms of taking too long to react, for me, Brown shouldn't have played today, and I know you guys have spoken about it, but Brown shouldn't have been playing today. It should have been Sorrow in the midfield. Simple as that. He should have played today. Like, Brown's not done anything in the last however many games to justify. And you know what? Like I say, he's getting on a bit now. You know, his legs aren't there. We've said it before. But if you're wanting to go and win a game, I mean, Sorrow when he came on, I know he made that slack pass. I actually thought Christie was a wee bit on his heels for that pass, but apart from that, he was full of energy when he came on that pitch. He was buzzing about the place. Mikey spoke about it earlier. He was dispossessing their players. He stopped Kent in his tracks a couple of times. He was breaking their players. That's what he does. That's what Scott Brown used to do. That was his job. That was what he did before. It's just not quite there anymore. But like I say, even if it was a sentimental selection today for Brown to play, he never showed me that the Scott Brown that was playing in his last Glasgow derby as Celtic captain. I never seen a performance that was worthy of that selection today. But like I say, I mean, Kennedy's, his selections, he's not going to be here much longer in terms of in the managerial hot seat. So it is what it is. And the last two games, I don't know what's going to happen.
Go by Barry Mark letting the fans down, and I saw there today that the fans stopped Old Trafford because of the way the Glazers wanted to join the Super League and the way the Glazers won in Manchester United. Do you think the fans will be out at Celtic Park next week, or demanding answers? What happened to this club, or do you think that they've just
I don't think any of that would happen like next week or that, but I know that I really agree with it. But if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. They'll face the consequences of doing it. But the fans are definitely not happy. And if there isn't something in the next couple of weeks, season tickets being renewed, that's when the fans will show how unhappy they are. I wouldn't fancy Celtic fans getting in and storming Celtic Park, Paul. No, I wouldn't advise that. How come you didn't ask Welsh about this when he was on?
I tried to, but I couldn't.
Welsh was halfway there, now.
What I'm trying to say is that, like this, none of these things would have happened if the fans were in Celtic Park. So that's what I think. Like Lennon would have been gone long ago, but Barry and Mark, changes would have been made fast. Like a lot of these players wouldn't have been playing if the fans were in Celtic Park this season. Like they really got a free ride this year the way they were playing because there was no fans in Celtic Park, Barry.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way the fans would have accepted the standard of play that we've had this year. It just wouldn't have happened. And I think I spoke about it before. I think the fans, they give the players that extra, 15-20% in their performance. They really do. They lift them, they get behind them, they support them. The players really appreciate the fans. And with it not being there, the standards have dropped dramatically. But with regards to protests I don't see what that does. What they're looking for, what kind of answers? Are they expecting Peter Lawwell to come out and say, "Oh, this is what's going on at the club"? They did their protests against Neil Lennon to get him out the club. It didn't really work because I think it was about 4 or 5 months later before they eventually did it. So protests for me, no, it doesn't really do anything for me. I don't really see the point in them.
Celtic fans, that's with Twitter and all the social media stuff these days, they expect Celtic to come out and tell them every single thing that's happening every day. I can understand fans' frustration at how long it's taking for anything to be announced, but for months there's been why's Lowell not coming out and saying this, where's Dermot Desmond, why's he not coming out and saying this? That's never going to happen. There's never going to be a time when Celtic's coming out and saying, all right, we spoke to Eddie Howe a couple of weeks ago, he's arguing with us about how many coaches he's allowed to bring in. That's never, do you know what I mean? Fans
exactly.
But it's never going to work like that. It never has.
That's what it is, Mark. And you know what? We've had 9 years of domination, and when the board have been quiet, that's fine because we're winning. Everything's rosy. The garden's rosy. We're winning trophies. We're winning titles. We're dominating Rangers. So we don't need to hear from the board. But now that it's kind of gone pear-shaped this year, the fans are demanding answers, and that's not the way it works. It's only because we've been so dominant for the last 9 years that it's never been picked up on that. The board or Peter Lawwell don't come out and say
of the last 9 years, Barry. Do we? Do you know? We don't know if all these problems have actually been in the club and they only came to light this year. We don't know how long. What happened? These problems could have been started from last season and continued into this season. We just don't know, do we?
We don't know, and we might never know, Paul. And we don't know what the problems are. We don't know how long they've been there. And like I say, we might never know what they are. But what we need to do now is we need to look ahead. We need to just erase this from memory if possible. We need to just put a line through this season. Like I say, I'm pretty sure there'll be an announcement within the next week or two. Mark, you're bang on. The season tickets, they're normally about the 3rd week in April. That's when normally the season ticket renewal process starts. We're now in the first week in May. Things have gone from bad to worse in the last couple of weeks with the 2 defeats to Rangers. So they need to make some sort of good announcement to the fans to entice them to buy a season ticket for next year. So the longer they leave it, the bigger an issue it's going to become. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was next week or probably at the latest the week after that we're getting an announcement on the new manager.
Going by the marks.
As well, just get your thoughts on this, Barry. I've said it earlier on the earlier podcast. Right, see if it's going to be Eddie Howe. Can you think any why there's a problem with announcing that now?
You know something, I've had I think myself in discussions with other Celtic supporting friends of mine. The only thing I could potentially think of is that the club, or maybe even how he doesn't want associated with the squad as it is at the minute. That's the only thing I can think of, because if Eddie Howe had to come in, for example, say 3 or 4 weeks ago when it was first broken or whenever it was, and he'd come into the club and would gone to Ibrox and lost in the cup game, and would gone to Ibrox today and lost in the league game, right away he's off on a bad foot.
I don't mean him coming in as manager. I'm talking about just why if it's going to be him, why don't they announce it? I mean,
I'll make the announcement.
If he's still getting paid with Bournemouth to the end of June or whatever it is, the end of this month, what's wrong with him saying, right, Eddie Howe's still under contract with Bournemouth, but come the 1st of June, he'll be the Celtic manager? We do it with players, why can we not do it with managers? That's the thing that I can't... If it is going to be Eddie Howe or whoever, even if they're at a club, why can they not just announce who it's going to be?
Yeah, I was kind of the same, man. Even if they didn't have the name of the manager, even if listen, we've reached an agreement with our top managerial candidate, or a sort of statement like that at least lets the fans know.
Just to keep it quiet, he's asked to no name him the new, but with a point manager, something like that.
Yeah, I kind of thought that myself a few weeks back. I thought that this is when sort of me, myself and other fans were getting a bit anxious as to not knowing exactly what was going on, or at that time I think there was nobody actually sort of linked or a heavy favourite for the job. It was just names every day. It made me think at one point, is this guy still in a job? Is it a guy who has a job at this minute in time and will be taking over the reins at the end of the season when his current contract expires or whatever it may be? But at the same time, I kind of thought that the club could have been able to announce that maybe without giving the name. Like I said, yes, Celtic Football Club have come to an arrangement with our top candidate who will take over, and it will be announced in due course. At least then the fans know the board are being proactive in appointing a manager. We've done, whoever that guy may be, at least the fans would be able to rest a bit easy knowing that, there is somebody coming in. We'll have, the board have gone and done their homework and appointed someone and done their work in the background. And like I say, potentially that guy could be working away in the background for the coming season. But I mean, I don't know why they've never announced it. I mean, I think I'd be hugely surprised now if it wasn't Eddie Howe. I've said for the past few weeks, I believe it is Eddie Howe. I'm hoping that he has actually started the job, in the sense that he might be identifying players that he's going to be bringing in next year. He might have a good idea of players that will not be here next year, and working away in the background, because I'm hoping that he's not going to come in now and have to start that, because somebody said, I've seen something on social media, there's 70 odd days until our first Champions League qualifier. So that does not give you enough time to put a squad together, because what I'm hoping happens is, your guys who are going to leave, I'm hoping they leave in the early part. If it's Edward, if it's, Ayer, these guys, I hope that we don't hold on to them for the Champions League qualifiers. I hope we get them sold, get the money in the door and get the replacements in the door, because I don't want our squad to start being rebuilt when this season's begun. We need to start rebuilding it immediately after this season finishes, within the next 2 or 3 weeks. That's when the rebuild has to start. So I'm hoping that, like I say, Edward, Ayer and Cham, Christie, whoever it may be, whoever's leaving this summer, I hope it happens in the early part of the summer to allow the new manager to come in and rebuild the squad from the early part of the summer.
We have a question from yourself. From Mike. He said when he was in school in Dundee, there used to be a Dundee super fan, and he used to talk about yourself in school, Barry. And I think he met a few times, and he was a super fan's name was Kevin Cooper, and he made up some difficulties. Did you remember this lad, Kevin Cooper?
Well, you would need to be a super fan to remember me, let me tell you. But Kevin,
you, Barry, when you were
that's when I still had a bit more hair than I've got now.
Did you think Playboy?
I used to think it was the David Beckham at Dundee mark, but I wasn't quite on his wages. But to answer Mikey's question, Kevin is my cousin.
Oh,
Kevin Cooper is my cousin, a good lad, Kevin, Dundee fanatic. But yeah, my mum and his mum are sisters.
Into the small world, like in this, it's amazing. Like in this, moving on to the rebuild. You know, like I think the next, like having Dominic McCoy in the stadium today, and obviously, like he knows how major this rebuild is, and think the next appointment by them is really the big one, Barry, isn't it? It's either it's going to be a director of football or thing. It's really going to show the fans what they intend to do for the next couple of years, isn't it? You know, it's going to show the fans like they're up for the fight. They want the title back in this next appointment.
Without a doubt, and the fact that, you know, we've not appointed a director of football yet, it would lead me to think that it's going to be a double appointment. They'll have to appoint them at the same time, because I think the consensus was when they announced Dominic Mackay, you know, way back whenever it was the start of the year, you know, they announced that he was going to be coming over from the SRU. The consensus at the time was the next step would be a director of football, and then the step after that would be the manager. Well, unfortunately, we've not had that appointment, the director of football appointment. We're still waiting for that. So it leads me to think that it's going to be a double appointment, because I agree with what Mikey said earlier. The director of football could be just as big, if not bigger, an appointment than the manager. Because the manager, obviously, he's just really got the first team, you know, the football inside to think about. The director of football, he's got the whole lot to oversee. You know, from the scouting system to the youth development system to the recruitment of players, the negotiating, whatever it may be. You know, so yeah, absolutely. I'd like to think that the next couple of weeks, both a manager and a director of football are going to be appointed. And then, like I say, the rebuild has to start immediately. We need to start thinking about who's going to be here next year, the players that are coming in the door, etc. So let's hope that happens very, very soon.
Exactly, like 70 days to your next cut. That's a very short turnaround in the modern game of football. And just 70 days to have a squad built up for your qualifiers, and you'll be hoping that these players who don't want to be here are kind of moved on, and the manager actually has a chance of fund available to him to get the players he wants in and settle down before these qualifiers, don't you?
Yeah, well, that's why I'm hoping. This is why I'm hoping that there's actually work going on in the background just now. I'm hoping if indeed it is Eddie Howe's had conversations with players that he wants to bring in, because, like I say, 70 odd days, it's not long at all. So I'm hoping that if indeed there was an agreement struck, you know, when they first had their meeting, I'm hoping Eddie Howe actually started the process right then. If it is Eddie Howe. Oh yeah, without a doubt, he should be. If he's agreed to become manager of Celtic Football Club, he should be out there looking to recruit the players, having conversations with guys that he sort of trusts, guys that he identifies are going to be a success at the football club, and players that play under the system that he does and suits the system that he has. Like I say, I'm hoping that those conversations are had and they're well underway, and he's hopefully identified a number of players that he's going to look to bring to the club in the next few weeks.
Mark?
Well, totally, just everything Barry said. I've said it myself as well. I'd like to think that whoever it is working behind the scenes and is already putting plans in place for things that he's wanting to change and players that he's wanting to bring in. I mean, we're talking about director of football needs to make decisions, but you've got to give if you're going to get a good manager in, you've got to give him a bit of say in one or two signings, because they've all got players that they like. You know what I mean? I'm not looking for a coach that's going to just be a yes man to the director of football. He's got to have some kind of input in it.
Exactly. And go
I think how would be like that. I don't think he's a kind of shy guy that would back away from putting his point across. So I think he will be, as Barry says, talking to players that he thinks could do a job as a So that the goalkeeper at Bournemouth, is he not a contract? I would take him for a year at Bergovic or whatever he's called. And
Berkovic.
there's another player as well that is used to working with, and they're talking about he could come in and probably maybe be a potential captain. I just saw something on Twitter about it.
There's a few players. The guy Steve Cook, I think that's the guy you're speaking about. Steve Cook's the captain, and he's out of contract. I think they talked about. I mean, it's potentially just press talk, but they talked about the boy Josh King. Josh King was the striker, that he had Norwegian striker at Bournemouth. He's on loan at Everton just now, but his contract's up. That could just be players, being linked through the press because they've got a connection to Eddie Howe. But at the same time, it would also make sense. Like I say, you see it all over. Managers, they tend to sign players that they trust, players that they've had in the past.
Why don't they?
Lennon. Martin O'Neill fought the board to sign Neil Lennon. But Martin O'Neill knew that he would do a job and run through brick walls for the club.
Martin O'Neill also knew that he loved the showers, but but going on for signings next season, and look, I know these worked out for us in the past and stuff like that, but are we doing too many loan signings in a season? Do you want the club to do more permanent season and have him there for 2-3 seasons just to have a proper first team structure within the club, Barry?
Yeah, well, something. I don't think you certainly shouldn't have too many loans within your club, because if you sign 5, 6, 7 players on loan and they're there for a season, if they go back to the club, their respective clubs, you're back to square one and you're having to rebuild again. The loan system, it has its pros and cons, and we've probably seen both of them. If you could get a loan player in and have an agreed price, a sort of an obligation to buy or whatever it is, they can sometimes work well, because I think I said it previously. A player could come in, do fantastically well, but you've already agreed a price, so the club can't ask for any more money than that, and that deal's done. But at the same time, like I said with Ayeti, we were negotiating. Yeah, we were negotiating a potential buy, clause into the loan deal, and all of a sudden he was purchased for £5 million. Now it's not worked out, therefore we can't. We can't send him back to West Ham, unfortunately. We're stuck with him unless we look to sell him for probably less than what we paid for him. But, I wouldn't like too many loans, to be honest with you, Paul. I think, like I say, 1 or 2, maybe even 3 loans within your first team squad, that's acceptable. But for me, I'd be potentially looking at the Bosman market. Like I say, players that are out of contract, that might be a good way to sort of transfer method to go down, as guys who, and like Mark says, you're then not worried about the transfer fee. It's more about the wages. So, for example, Josh King, for example, here's a Premier League striker out of contract. If he's happy with Howe, if he's worked with Howe in the past, who's to say, if we don't have to pay a transfer fee for him, who's to say we can't offer him a decent wage to come up to Scotland? And if that's the guy that Eddie Howe wants, that's who we should be looking at. But not too many loans for me. I think it has its good points and its bad points, but I certainly wouldn't want to flood my team with them, because, like I say, it could be that the year after you're back in exactly the same scenario, looking for players to fill these spots.
Mark?
I've said that for years as well. We've relied on loans too much, even back to Foster, because I never thought we'd actually manage to sign Foster full time. I really didn't. I thought another Premier League team would have stole him after his first season that we had with him. But the loans have got their places in the team as well. But too many of them in the team, in the positions, bad planning again. Really, it's short-term planning, but no long-term planning. If we've got a loan signing in, it should be a better hat, not even a backup. We should have, our backups should come from development squad, etc. If we're bringing in somebody on loan, it's got to be at the level of like Elyounoussi, somebody that's going to improve the team, improve the first team. That's my thing about it. Signing loans as backup players is no use for me. They've got to come in and be a first team player and improve the first team.
Maybe have a young player learning off that young player then, or vice versa. That kind of way. Like, you don't want to be back to square one, like where we are this season. Like realistic, like we're we're going to have a new back four next season. If you come think like that's what, and maybe a new goal.
A new back five probably, including the goalkeeper, Paul.
Mhm. Mhm. You know, and that's going to take time as well, Barry. For like, realistically, Barry, how long does it take a whole new defence to gel?
Well, the thing is, unfortunately, the more games you play, that's when the relationship builds. You know, as a defence and a goalkeeper, you know, defensive unit. But like I say, the first games are probably going to be Champions League qualifiers. So we need to hit the ground. We need to hit the ground running. Like you say, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think we might need a new back 4 or 5. You know, Stevie Welsh. I've talked to him before. I really like him, but I kind of agree with you, Mark. I wouldn't want to hang my hat on him going at the Champions League qualifiers. Greg Taylor's another one. I like Greg Taylor. I like his attitude, but I don't know if he's quite at the level to be a first choice left back. I'd like him as a backup, certainly. Above that, you know, Ayer's going to be away. Kenny's going to be away. We know Duffy's going to be away. How long's Julian going to be out for? It's going to be a massive overhaul of players. You know, it really is. So that's why I said on the previous point, I really hope that there's work going on behind the scenes to get players in, whoever it may be. I said, I agree with Mikey. I said on the comments, my number one priority signing this summer would be go out and get Lewis Ferguson in the door as quick as you can. You know, people say, you know, I think they think he might go to Rangers. I don't buy that. You know, Mark, I don't know if you know his family. You know, Derek. I played with Derek at Hamilton. Derek was at the Hamilton the latter part of his career when I was there, and he's he's a really grounded, level-headed fella. He certainly doesn't strike me as a guy that would be one of those. He's no signing. My boy's no signing for that lot.
No,
I think yeah. I think
I've said that a few times on the podcast.
Yeah.
That's no.
Yeah.
You've known Derek. You probably, if you found out you were a Celtic supporter, he probably gave you a wee bit of a ribbon, a wee bit of patter and that about it. But
we did, yeah, he did.
That's so ever really was. I mean, I've said it before. Barry's wife's a Catholic, and his father-in-law's Celtic season ticket holder, and that side it doesn't come into it. If it's best, see if Celtic or Rangers came in for Lewis Ferguson, and it was maybe no the new because you've won the league and that, but see, like when he was leaving Hamilton, if Celtic and Rangers had come in for Lewis Ferguson, he'd have came to Celtic because it was a bigger. Do you get what I mean? We were winning trophies, winning the league, playing in Europe and that. When it comes down to it, it's football to him, you know.
Yeah, that's it. And I mean, Derek, you know, if Lewis Ferguson was to go to his dad for advice, he'd give him the best advice on what's best for his career and his footballing choice, not what's best for what side of the city you prefer. So yeah, I'd definitely be going out to get Lewis Ferguson. I really think that he could potentially come in and be Brown's long-term successor. But I know we've got guys there already. You know, Sorrow, I'd be prepared to give an opportunity to the guys I've already spoke about. I mean, I like the boy McCarthy, and I wouldn't mind him in the door. If it wasn't too much money, I wouldn't mind him in the door. You know, for me, you can never have too many good, decent players in your squad. And that way,
and this,
you know,
McCarthy being injury prone, I don't know where that's came from. He had a double leg break. And he's came back for that. And as I put up in the forum the other day, since that double leg break, him and James Forrest have roughly missed the same amount of games through injury.
And he's somebody I've always kept a little eye on, and he's always in the match day squad. He's always on the bench, whether he gets a game or not. So that tells me that he's fit to play, you know. So, but listen, that might be paper talk as well, putting James McCarthy. But you know, he's certainly one that I would be prepared to come in. But Ferguson another, and like I say, the defence is going to need a big overhaul. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully, like I say, there's work going on in the background, and we might already have boys in the door. It's maybe just not been signed, sealed, and delivered yet.
McCarthy would be a good signing in a free transfer.
Absolutely.
I don't know his contract situation now, but I'm no. But if
I think he's out of contract, Mark. I think his contract. Well, according to the papers, his contract's out this summer. I don't know if that's true or not. Somebody might be able to buzz or somebody might be able to Google that. But it says that.
Then Celtic should be. I mean, there's somebody on the chat saying McCarthy or Encham. Who would you have in your squad?
I'd have McCarthy every day of the week over Encham. But you know what you're going to get. You know what you're going to get from James McCarthy. Encham, you never know what's going to turn up when he takes the field.
one thing I saw about McCarthy and watching him play with on is that he won't back out of a tackle. You know, he'll put his body in there.
Yeah.
I think that's what you can expect from him. Like going back to Encham, like we saw how much of a player he's fallen by the way he's failing with Marseille. He actually can't get in the first team now. You know, and there's who's a player who actually thinks he's bigger than Celtic and he's on for bigger teams and he can't even break into the Marseille first team. You know.
Yeah. I've something, and Cham's a fantastic talent. He really is, and we've seen him when he's on his game. You know, he's one of, if not the best midfielders in the country. But for me, I've got questions over his attitude. I don't like the guy's attitude. I remember a game at Fir Park on a Wednesday night. It was under Rodgers, and he did not want to know. And we've had a bit of issues with some of the French boys. You know, I don't know what it is, but for me, it's time for Encham to go. You know, it's time for him to move on because, like I say, even if he was to turn round now and say, well, you know what, I've went to Marseille, it's not worked out for me, I want to come back to Celtic. I don't know if I would trust that, to be honest with you. I don't know if I would because, like I say, he seems to be a very temperamental, sort of moody type player. We can't afford players like that.
You know, it just seems to crunch French players really, isn't it?
I mean, it seems to be, we've had an issue, you know, that Dembele left under a wee bit of clouds, didn't he? And, you know, that you've got Encham the same. Edouard this season, for me, I've been really disappointed in his attitude. He didn't get the move that he wanted last year. For me, he should have knuckled down. You know, if I was in Neil Lennon, I would have said, listen, you know, we're keeping you for this year, but if you produce the goods for me, we'll actually help you get your move. You tell us what league you want to play in, what team you want to play for, what manager you want to play under. We'll help you get that move. But that's never materialised. And by all accounts, Julian's a bit of the same. I think he's trying to force a move. So the French market's one that we've had a bit of success in terms of what they've delivered on the park, but for some reason it never seems to end very well.
Mark?
See me with a bit of mind Anelka at Arsenal, the great sultan that they called him. The French players always seem to just any wee silly problem that gets escalated and end up going the huff. That's the kind of impression I get for them. They're no willing to just knuckle down and go on with it. I mean, there's no. See if you're a professional football player and you're looking for a move. See if you've not had that move. See until the next transfer window opens. What's the point of spitting the dummy out about it?
That's exactly it, Mark, because you look at Edouard last year, his stock was high. There was Arsenal was mentioned, AC Milan was mentioned, other big, actually PSG was mentioned, going back to PSG. But now he's had a pretty poor season. And who are the clubs that are linked with him now? You know that he's stock.
Look, Arsenal are still interested in him.
I think that would be an incredible move if he was getting the move to Arsenal. Fair play to the guy, but for me, I think his stock sort of dipped a bit, and that's due. If he'd have kept on it, if he'd have kept his level of performance throughout the season, he would have been looking at a big move this summer. I don't know if it'll come. I don't know if he'll get a club like Arsenal. I think it might be somebody maybe not quite at that level.
The likes of Newcastle or West Ham or anything like that, I think now is the kind of club. No, that's
West
Newcastle.
Ham's getting the Champions League and Arsenal sitting at about 8th.
Yeah, but are West Ham classified as a bigger club than Arsenal, Mark?
No, I wouldn't say they're a bigger club, but probably West Ham fans would disagree with that because they're all a bit loopy, aren't they? But hey, no, I wouldn't say they're a bigger club, but Arsenal are in a decline and there's problems behind the scenes there. Players are wanting to leave, they don't rate what Arteta's doing, and there's a lot of problems behind Arsenal now.
Financial things or there's a new buyer now who wants to buy the club and everything and that. But going by Lewis Foggs, like it would be a great boost for Celtic over our rivals Rangers if he did sign him. You know that we're still able to buy the best players in Scotland or the best midfielder in Scotland. I want this.
Well, that's what it boils down to, Paul. You know, we should be looking to, you know, if somebody's making an impact in our league, we should be looking at that. You know, we did it with Turnbull. Turnbull was the standout player, and the young Scottish player in the SPL, and we went and signed him. So it shouldn't really boil down to, he's Derek Ferguson's son, or, he's maybe a Rangers supporter. I think those days have gone. That's kind of gone out the window now. It should be that this guy's one of the best young players in the country, and Celtic should be looking at all the best young players in the country, as well as developing your own. You need to have a sort of an eye in on what's happening at other clubs. And for me right now, we went and got Turnbull last year. Turnbull was the best young player in the country. I think now the next guy right now is Lewis Ferguson, and that's what I said it on the comments earlier. He'd be my number one priority. And I don't think it really comes down to getting one up on your rivals, to be honest, mate. I think it's more down to the fact that Celtic's due diligence, and they wouldn't be doing their job if they didn't have an eye on guys like Lewis Ferguson. And if he was become available, or not even if he's become available, if Celtic go and make it known that they want this player, that's exactly the way it should be happening.
Exactly. Cole, but one player that I know that you admire, and he's out on loan, and would you think another loan might help next season, or would you want him in between the front? Is Luke O'Connell? I know you were impressed with him.
Yeah, well, he's continued it again. He got another goal last week, Luke O'Connell. You know what? He's gone out to Queen's Park, and I've said this before. It'd be easy for guys to go out into that environment and think, maybe this isn't quite for me, this standard of football. But he's gone, he's taken his opportunity, he's grabbed it by the scruff of the neck, and he's doing really well by all accounts out there. For me, bring him in pre-season, let him see, it's a clean slate for everybody. The new manager coming in, everybody's got an opportunity to go and impress him in pre-season. And then, like I say, if he gets any game time, pre-season friendlies, what have you, he's got an opportunity to go and impress the manager, as do every single player that's going to be at the football club, whether it be, the youth players, or whether it be players that are currently in the first team, or guys that the manager brings on himself. Everybody starts on a clean slate. And then, if he's maybe not getting, the game time at the start of the season, then it probably would be a good opportunity for him to go on loan. But again, he might want to use this as an opportunity to show the manager what he can do. And, at the end of the day, if they're good enough, throw them in there. Let them see what they can do.
Exactly. Tough one for you, and I know it's been a disappointing season this year, and hard to pick one. Player of the year, Barry, could you pick one?
Oh, God, I got an email from the club asking me to vote for a player of the year. I never opened it, to be honest. Player of the year for me, I would go with Turnbull. I would go with Turnbull for me, the player of the year. I know he only came in toward, but in what's been a hugely disappointing season, it's difficult to actually look at anybody and think, they had a right good season this year. They were just let down by their teammates.
How late Turnbull came into the Celtic team, and how he broke in like that. Where I would pick Turnbull as well, that we're nominating him for Player of the Year, isn't it? That shows how bad these players actually have been this season.
And it goes back to kind of what we spoke about earlier, and that was, players who, regardless whether they were performing poorly or not, they were still getting played every week. Callum McGregor, he was probably my favourite. He's my son's favourite player, and he's probably one of my favourite players. He's had just... It's unbelievable the fall from grace, unfortunately, that Callum's had. But like I said, he's played every week. He's never had to take a stint on the bench. And it took for, I don't know when it was Turnbull came in, probably October, November time before he actually got a start. But, it just goes to show that the sort of level of competition, it didn't matter if Brown wasn't playing well, if Christie wasn't playing well, if McGregor wasn't playing well. They still kept their place in the team. Still kept their place in the team, whereas guys like Turnbull chomping at the bit to get an opportunity, and Turnbull's come in and he's grabbed his opportunity with both hands. He's really been a shining light in what's been a pretty dismal season.
This question, of where we were questioned for why isn't he playing, and Neil Lennon coming out saying he wasn't fit enough, but he was playing for Motherwell up until that point. We signed him week in, week out, so I can't see how he wasn't fit to come straight into the Celtic team. Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know if I believed that, like Lennon's thing, that wasn't fit enough. I can understand potentially wanting to protect an injury and ease somebody in. He did have a really nasty, serious injury, but like you say, Paul, he'd come back into the Motherwell team and was playing pretty regularly with them. So I think sometimes it's an easy excuse to give to the media. He's not quite at the fitness levels that he needs to be in the first team. But he's came in to the first team. He's certainly never shown that he wasn't fit, or he's never looked tired, or he's never touched wood. He's never picked up any injuries since he's been in that team. And he's only going to go from strength to strength. He's a right good player, and I think if we get good players in and around him, he's really going to kick on and really shine. He could potentially be the next big asset that we've got at the football club.
Mark, could you pick a player of the year of this season, or?
I said Welsh earlier on the day, and I'll stick with that. Just because I really can't pick somebody else I think deserves it. I think as a young man coming in, pardon me, a young man coming into the team that's not playing well, I think he's gave a good showing for himself. So I'd just pick young Welsh.
Mm-hmm. But I asked everyone this question who came on just for the circumstances. Are you optimistic that the board will get everything right next season, or is there still is there a little bit of worry there for next season, considering how poorly we've been this season?
Paul, we're Celtic fans. We're always optimistic. Listen, I am optimistic for next season. Like I say, I'm hoping that the manager's going to be announced in the next couple of weeks, and we can look to the future and look. It is going to be a massive summer. It's going to be a huge summer for us, a huge overhaul. But like I say, we're Celtic supporters. We're optimistic. We always believe. I believe we were going to win today. There we go. That's how optimistic I was. So yeah, you know what? Why not? Why not? There's no reason. They're not a great side. I need to be honest. No. They're a well-drilled side, but there's nothing there that makes me think that we can't get back. Get back the title next season. And like I say, the Celtic supporters,
Barry, this team. If we had a well-drilled manager who actually knew tactics and played a style of play that the fans can relate to and that Celtic can relate to.
That's what we need, and that's what we hope we're going to get in Eddie Howe, a guy who has an identity, a guy who plays a certain style. And like I say, for me, if it is Eddie Howe, he is a modern day, he's a forward-thinking, sort of natural manager. I believe the players will buy into his methods. There's a few videos of him on YouTube that, I've really enjoyed watching. Like I say, he seems to be the type of manager that a young player will buy into his thoughts and his styles and processes. And I'm hoping that's what we're going to get.
He's a modern day manager, isn't he? Young manager. He can relate to young players. That's really what Celtic should be looking for. If it's Eddie Howe, that he's proven himself. He kept Bournemouth up. He gone through all these leagues. Hopefully it's Eddie Howe, but we just have to wait and see. That's it for tonight, folks. Again, my thanks to Mark, Michael, Wayne, and Barry. Thanks for everyone who joined the watch along today. Mark, off to yourself and Barry.
Just thank you. Thanks very much, Barry, for joining us, and everybody else that was in the live chat and other guests we had. Again, Paul, thanks for everything you do. Enjoy the rest of your nights, lad. I know it's not the kind of night we were expecting, but always looking at the bright side of life, Barry?
That's it. And I see the next one. It's going to be. I'm going to be positive on the next podcast. We're going to be speaking about all things positive.
You're going to be yourself and Michael will be our next two guests to have you cheered up. That's what we will.
Well, Paul sets the topics. It's him that wants us to talk about all this depressing stuff.
That's it. Well, the next one we'll appoint our manager very soon, and we'll all be full of beans and high hopes for next season. We'll forget about what's happened this season.
Hopefully. Right, okay, lads. Good night. God bless.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.